Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George,
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
and with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. It's a podcast that wallows in despair with humor as its excuse. Make sure that you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that have, do, or ever will exist at our handle at Unnatural Show, particularly on TikTok and YouTube, where the Hanson followers are coming out in droves. And I don't, to quote Pauline Hanson, I don't like it.
Don't like it. Back for another week here on the Despair podcast. Tom, sorry I cut you off. What were you going to say?
The despair
So
cast.
again, I
Despair
don't,
cast.
George. I don't know what you expected because like you said things on the internet, and that's where all the shitheads are. So
It's really
shitheads will come
bothering
out and
me.
talk to you.
Just as a very quick aside before we get stuck into the news.
Now, don't tell them it's bothering you.
No, it's not.
They
I
want.
mean,
That's what they want to do.
they do bother me, but like it's more the fact that anytime Pauline Hanson comes up, there's like a contingent of like speed dealer sunglasses wearing guys holding large fish telling me that I'm an idiot and I haven't read enough, which is not true. If anything, I read too much and it hurts me. But, saying that I'm an idiot or that just like Pauline Hanson number one, or just it's the same. It honestly is quite scary in that it reminds me of Donald Trump and that kind of like sort of opaque, baseless nationalism that he sort of pushes, where it's like, oh, cry more libs kind of thing. It's just like, fuck you. It's like, it's not engaging in any of the substantive policy discussion. I mean, what would you expect from Hanson stands? But like the fact that it's just like, I make a good point about how Pauline Hanson's housing repossession policy is fucking disastrous and would be absolute nonsense. And the responses are like, cry more cuck and things like that. It's like, you haven't actually engaged with how bad these ideas are.
It's called
at all.
trolling, George, and it's the internet.
But it's concerning to me that, like, I don't know, other comments that we get are like, this is a good idea or this is a bad idea. You're an idiot for these reasons. And sometimes they're good reasons. They go, yeah, actually, I didn't consider that aspect of it. Or, there's more complexity there. Obviously, it's just a 1-minute clip online. It's not going to capture the full 1 to 1.5 hour discussion that we have. So people are only exposed to a fragment of the thing that we're talking about. But, at least there's an engagement on the idea, right? Or the ideas that we're talking about. When the Hanson voters chip in, it's literally just like, fuck off, coastal scum breed wanker. Like, the idiot millennials podcast. It's just bashing. It's got actually nothing to do with the ideas and how good or bad they are. It's just like, I hate you and I want to make make the libs cry, make the lefties cry.
The people
is the whole
that
idea.
like the party that said, yeah, we're just going to kick foreigners out of their homes, will just come in and be like, fuck you, I don't like you, and end of discussion.
But like what we're talking about is the idea.
You're surprised about this?
How disastrous that the idea that they're going to propose is, and here are the reasons why. Let's like think through it for 30 seconds. And they're all just like, fuck off, we're full. Fuck out me country cunt. Like it really is like that level of analysis, which is disturbing to me that there's no willingness to engage on ideas.
The fact you're surprised on this is...
I'm not surprised. I guess I'm
this
saddened.
You have
I'm saddened
been
by it.
drinking the Adam optimism Kool-Aid.
Have we swapped? Have we swapped?
Both
What's
Adam
going
and
on
I are
here?
like, you expected better from these people?
Not that I expected better. I'm saddened.
There is a reason.
I'm
Jerry, and
saddened.
We'll talk about it, George. Like, it's in the rundown. There is a reason why countries are falling headfirst into ideology and
into the fascist abyss.
nationalism, populism, these tropes, because it's easy. And
This
we'll
is
talk
the
about
most
why in a bit.
popular, sort of party in the country currently, depending on who you listen to. I mean, we'd had 4 polls last week that are basically saying that. And the fact that their supporters can't even articulate any kind of
we're also
coherent
assuming-
strategy. It's not even, it's got nothing to do with the policy. It's all cult of personality, in group versus out group. If you're not a white Australian, fuck yous. And it's like, it's so dangerous and scary to me. I don't know if you guys feel that as like people who are obviously, you know, look and sound like the dominant in group, but as someone whose name is Jorge Tsipos, you know, like
Tsipras?
Jorge Salvatore Tsipos.
Tsipras.
I say Tsipos, yeah, but I was making fun of the pronunciation.
Yeah.
But it's like I often do not feel like I'm part of the majoritarian, you know, element in this country. Like as someone who's the descendant of immigrants and, you know, copped some strife for that growing up, you know, greasy Italian and WOG and all that sort of stuff. I don't feel like the dominant in group. So maybe it just scares me more when I see these things crop up than it does you guys for obvious reasons. But like, this is giving me like not significant amount of anxiety at the moment that these people are now the dominant group.
Yeah, no, I am terrified. I am extremely terrified. I just didn't. I'm not surprised about these people coming in. Like
I'm surprised to the extent that it's grown in recent
really
months. We've been doing this for 15 years.
Well,
I've never experienced this level of just like vitriol for who I am, for who we are, just existing on the internet. It seems like it's exploded recently.
I am also quite conscious of the fact that people, it's not always like you're putting a lot more conceptualization around it, that there are actual people putting these things on thoughts. There are bots. There are people that just routinely go through and just do this as like
I mean the Hanson holding out a tissue box. Like I think that could be a bot, but like a lot of these things feel directed in a way that doesn't strike me as being done by a bot for the purposes of far right amplification. Right?
There are people that aren't like they're just. They're going to make a hateful comment and move on. So my point being is you're putting a lot
too much
of
stock
weight.
in it.
Yes, correct. They've watched 15 seconds, 30 seconds maybe.
And they just call me a cunt and move on. I get it.
Move on. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but they've probably watched hours and hours of Pauline's social media.
Yeah. And they're doing hours and hours of Andrew Bolt. Yeah, if they're not an increasing minority or a plurality at this point, they're certainly very, very vocal in a way that I've not seen before, which is concerning to me.
No, they're vocal. They're engaged. And keep in mind that, you know, demographically, younger people are also more inclined to potentially swing right these days.
But not millennials. That's the thing. It's like
but millennials,
majority of the voting.
We're one generation.
Anymore, George.
We're not the young
young people anymore.
Anyway, so that's 5 minutes of.
We're not the young people anymore is the most devastating thing that's being said thus far. That hits me right in the feels, guys.
So yeah, that's 5 minutes on just a way of asking. Please be respectful and nice in the comments.
I mean, comment however you like. I'm sad that we're attracting all these fucking goons. That's all.
The algorithm feeds the hate, and the hate.
Yeah,
feeds the
I
algorithm.
guess.
Let the hate flow through you.
Speaking of hate, Australia has actually improved itself on the Global Peace Index. So there is a Global Peace Index that's been running since the turn of the century. Turn of the century sounds like it was 100 years ago. It was 26 years ago, which also is a quarter of a century, which is terrifying. Anyway,
can I say my least favorite quarter centennial thus far?
Yeah, it hasn't been a great start. But then I was like, oh, this start of the century has been shit. And I thought back, I was like, actually, the start of last century was pretty bad. The start of the century before that was also pretty bad.
Yeah, it's
okay.
Most centuries seem to get off to a real shit start.
Yeah, I mean, bad start to the century, bad start to the millennium as well, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know what was going on in the year 1000. I'm sure it wasn't great, but
the literal Dark Ages. I'm sure it was great.
I'm sure it was pretty bad.
Adler Hastings, 1066. Not the first quarter, but the middle.
That was Q3 of that century.
Yeah, it's not great.
Anyway, so Australia is the world's 20th most peaceful country, but the Global Peacefulness Index has deteriorated for the 12th consecutive year.
Why? That's so weird.
Conflict around the world has reached levels not seen since World War II. So if you are thinking that the world is pretty fucking bad, it is. See, the data stacks up with that.
I've seen the documents.
counters have proved it.
Yeah.
The number of active state-based conflicts has reached 61 globally, which again is the highest since World War II. Now, Australia did fall 14 places to 133rd on the terrorism index since the Bondi terror attack. We're saying before the show, it's like golf. The higher number is better. The lower number is better. So
For these benchmarks, lower is better. Yeah.
Lower is better. You don't want to be 133rd. You'd rather be in the top 100 or one. But it's only one of 23 indicators used. So there's a bunch of metrics they use, and they average it out, and that's how they get the global. My people, the nerds, mathing and modeling and trying to figure out who's the least terroristed country in the world. Some other stats that might be of interest, which is terrifying. Drone attacks increased by more than 11,500% between 2018 and 2025.
Well, surely that's to do with the commercial availability of drones in warfare, right? Like you're talking about Reaper drones and stuff like that beforehand, sort of deployed by the US military, right? Like state actors, massive planes as drones, not like I've got my DJI Mini with a grenade strapped to it and I'm flying it through the Ukrainian woods.
But I mean I feel
11,500%.
Yeah,
that's a big increase.
Like the whole sentence is horrifying, I find, because it's not like there's been 11,500 more incidents. It's percent. So whatever 100% was in that other period, that's an insane jump. But the whole
we've increased the drones by 11,000%, 12,000%. You can't even believe it's incredible.
Well, then it's practically free, according to Trump. But
free
the whole sentence is that drone attacks increased by more than 11,500% between 2018 and 2025, while artificial intelligence has reduced military targeting times from 1 day to seconds. Yeah. So those are two different metrics that are equally terrible.
Yeah. If you would like some more information on that, read the book about Alex Karp, The Philosopher in the Valley, by Michael Steinberger, I think his name is, which talks about the rise of Palantir and sort of its integration with the US defense apparatus in terms of surfacing targets immediately, basically combining all of these different pieces of data, that things that used to take days in terms of getting an approved hit list now are done in seconds. And it's like, is it any wonder?
Reducing the kill chain as well.
The kill chain.
The amount of decision points in that chain are much less.
And it now becomes a situation where someone can get a list of targets, narrow it down, approve it in a matter of seconds. And is it any wonder that in the first days of the conflict that the Americans bombed a girls' school in Iran, killing 176 people, right? Because they just made a snap decision based on, a bunch of a fucking data lake, rather than actually looking at anything.
I love, George, you are right. You do read too much. We just mentioned something about AI military targeting and you're like, here's a book about the saddest thing you've ever heard.
Yes.
We've talked about it on the show as well. Yeah, the kill chains are decreasing. And it is making a difference on the battlefield in Ukraine as well.
Shooting first and asking questions later, historically a great strategy. Yeah.
So other stats here, which just make everyone feel wonderful and warm on the inside. Conflict deaths do remain below recent peaks. So conflict deaths reached more than 181,000 in 2025. But they do remain below the 2023 peak of more than 309,000. Keep in mind, these are conflict-related deaths. It doesn't include the second, third, and fourth order deaths of
humanitarian crisis, and disease,
that come out of it.
And all that sort of stuff. The second order effects of a conflict occurring in a region.
Right? Sort of a peak in 2023. Gee, what happened in 2023?
If only I could remember
coming to me.
What happened around that sort of 2023 mark that caused a lot of killing. If only there was some large event that occurred in the Middle East that would explain some of that. But sadly, we have no historical content. The only thing I've learned from history is that nobody learns from history.
So just and the final point here to note about the story, Iceland retained its position as the world's most peaceful country for the 19th consecutive year. So if you want to go on,
because it's just isolated and it's cold, so nobody wants to go there and kill people.
I would love to go to Iceland, not to kill people, but just to go to Iceland. I think it'd be nice. New Zealand is the second most peaceful country.
Again,
So
what are they
you know,
coming after? The sheep?
Switzerland, which we'll talk about in a minute in one of our other stories, Slovenia and Ireland in that order. For the first time, Russia ranked as the least peaceful country. I'm like, for the first time? How is this only
Wow.
the first time?
Not during the Cuban Missile Crisis, not during the Cold War at all. No, now is the first time.
They haven't been measuring since then, I guess. The Sudan was the second country, which I said the Sudan. Sudan is the country. Obviously, we don't talk about it on the show very often, but Sudan's been in a civil war, a devastating civil war with hundreds of thousands of people have died for a long time now.
Yeah.
Democratic Republic of the Congo, well known for being a bastion of peace. Ukraine, which is somehow, what's that, fourth on that list, and then Israel is the last one in the top
Interesting.
5. That is to set the scene for the next story, which is that as we mentioned last week, Richard Marles and Penny Wong from Australia have gone to the UK to talk around AUKUS, which is the big defence pact that we have with the United Kingdom and America. And when they got there,
nominally at least.
Nominally. When they got there, the British Defence Secretary, John Healey, halfway through tour, they'd already done one press conference with him. British Defence Secretary John Healey dramatically quit on Thursday.
I think when you quit under those circumstances, you don't quit, you've quat. He quatted dramatically.
It's some in the thick of it shit. Like
Yeah.
the crazy politics of like, oh yeah, you hung out with him one day and then he's quit the next day, and you're like, oh well, we're halfway through this tour.
I hope he passed on his handover notes. I hope he passed over his handover notes to the new incoming defence minister, so he knows what's up. Yeah,
So they were meant to-
really, you do imagine Peter Capaldi on a flip phone, stalking through the back areas of Parliament, Westminster, just going, he did fucking what? Oh, he's gonna get in there. I'm gonna wring his fucking neck. Like,
He said that the reason was the government's failure to spend enough money in the defence sector left him with no other option. To which UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer basically wrote back and said, well, we're actually spending plenty, and I'm sorry you aren't going to be a part of our program moving forward.
It felt a bit cunty, didn't it? Keir Starmer's having a bit of cunt, I think.
But look, and they were meant to, Penny Wong and Richard Marles were meant to go and tour a naval base. That didn't happen. So look, I mean, the commentary is that the relationship's fine, but it's just obvious to see that. So I guess where I'm going with this is that the UK, in terms of its defence posture, is
It's definitely increasing.
It's the thing. It's not to the rate of what people, the commentators, the military, hawks say is enough. So
But
their
you're
navy,
talking about
for
it in the
instance-
context of Europe being in a
Correct.
war, sort of helping to support Ukraine with the conflict with Russia, right?
Well,
it is a
what
different
I'm
scenario
saying
there.
is
But in terms
if-
of percentage of GDP, they are spending, and they're cutting in social spending areas to help facilitate this massive increase in their military. Now, yes, is it the 6% of GDP that the Warhawks say is absolutely fucking necessary in order to stave off the fucking barbarians at the gate?
Yeah.
No, probably not. But it's also you
the-
still
the
need to run a
lens-
country in the meantime. It can't just be,
Yeah.
a tank with Britain attached to it. Like,
The lens that they're looking at this through is, if Russia invaded, could we defend ourselves? And the answer at this point is sort of no.
Probably not.
Can they defend the Falkland Islands? Right, like that's been a
fuck
question
the
mark.
Falkland. Who cares about the Falkland Islands?
British
what are you
people
talking about?
care about the Falkland Islands. As it
And we
turns out.
must
So
keep this tiny fucking island off Argentina. It's absolutely essential.
So I guess it comes in with the lens of that, right? So there are a lot of people saying that they need to increase defence spending. That the UK is not prepped for a high-intensity conflict.
No, because you're not a superpower anymore. Like, I'm sorry, sweetheart. You just need to
But-
come to grips with the fact that you're not a superpower anymore. Like,
They
and
think
haven't
they're a
been
superpower,
but you
to
haven't
be
been
very
for
clear.
decades. So, like, I think it's time to let the dream of imperial empire go at this point. Surely.
Yes. So yeah, this is obviously also in the context of the Keir Starmer leadership questions that have been floating around and not getting louder as the weeks have gone on. There's I think elections happening locally where they're bringing in like people that are actively saying, Labor candidates that are actively saying, I want to be Keir Starmer's replacement.
And there was this whole thing about so the local election several weeks ago where Labor got smashed as expected. And then there's been talk about who's going to take over the Labor Party with the Mayor of Manchester, Andy Burnham, who was an MP but is no longer an MP. Essentially has had, now I don't know the status of this now since I last heard about it, but they've managed to convince a Labor federal minister that's nearby his district of Manchester to stand aside so Andy Burnham can run in a by-election and take his seat in order to then take control of the Labor Party away from Keir Starmer, which seems like a bit of a gambit. Yeah. It's not guaranteed to win it, as far as I'm aware.
It's definitely a multi-bet. That one. That's a 4-leg multi if I've ever seen one.
Yeah. So
you
it seems
just be making shit up, Adam. I'd trust you that that's a thing.
It's It's like you've got to bet on the fact that you'll win the.
You'll win the by-election, that you'll get elected leader, that you'll be able to displace Starmer. That, if you displace Starmer, then you'll be able to win the general election in a couple of years.
It's literally a 4-leg multi.
Yeah.
With the result being, the win being prime ministership.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then so
what are the odds? What are the odds on Kalshi for that at the moment? I have to look.
I don't know. Put down a cheeky tenner. So that's what's happening in the UK, which is. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion. We've talked about the local elections there, which is probably a good way to segue back to Australia to talk around how that lines up with the rise of Pauline Hanson, which we talked about at the start of the show.
Andy Burnham is currently the favourite to become Prime Minister with betting odds set at evens 1-1 to replace Keir Starmer.
Polymarket's got to there'll be bets on that. According
to Polymarket, yeah. Obviously, we've got problems with Polymarket, as we've discussed before, but it is interesting that it's even... It's like, Melbourne Mayor, former Melbourne Mayor, what was that guy's name? John Soe? Becoming Prime Minister within the space of a couple of weeks. That's the level of,
It's, what's his name? Johnson, He was the former London. Boris Johnson, he was the former London mayor that became Prime Minister. So
London's slightly different because the London mayoralship, because it's the largest city and the economic engine of the country, is kind of seen, even though it is a local government position, is kind of seen as being much more influential than other mayoral positions. So it's like Zoran Mamdani, mayor of New York City, international figure, right? So if he were eligible to run for president, which he's not because he was born in Uganda, I believe, then you could see that transition taking place because the mayor of a major city in a major economy is such an outsized level of responsibility, right? But it's pretty weird. Manchester is not a big city compared to London, right?
Not in the scheme of things. So Pauline Hanson obviously has done very well in the polls recently. And it's been interesting sort of looking at, I guess, the Liberal Party's reaction to that. Obviously, they elected Tony Abbott as their president, and there's an opinion piece that we'll share in the show notes
from Annabelle Crabb.
Which talks about sort of the history. It's an interesting history between Pauline Hanson and Tony Abbott, and potentially how that might shift the conversation going forward. I didn't realize that Tony Abbott basically was responsible for putting her in jail, and I forgot that she went to jail. What?
Yeah. I think a lot of people forget that because it ended up being overturned, as I recall.
I don't know. Do you want me to run through the history of this? Yeah,
I can't do it. It's too depressing.
So Tony Abbott was elected in 1994. He had a staffer who goes by the name of... Where's his name? Ola something. It's gone. He had a staffer. Anyway.
Is it David Oldfield?
That's the one. Oldfield. Thank you very much. Oldfield, Pauline Hanson got elected to Parliament a couple of years later.
96.
Oldfield started talking to Hanson in the background, despite the fact that Tony Abbott publicly was like, we shouldn't be engaging with her.
He eschewed her publicly, yeah.
Yeah,
At least at that time.
She's going to divide, and the concern essentially being she will divide the Conservative voter base. We don't want to do that. We want to we'll keep the broad church of the Liberals together.
I hate to say it, but Tony Abbott was right.
I'm gonna say, yeah, how'd that go for him? Though?
He was just early.
And then, so basically, there was another guy, Eldridge, I think.
David Eldridge.
Right. Yep. Who, together with Oldfield, in the background, they formed the One Nation, with Pauline Hanson, they formed the One Nation party. And Oldfield...
Ettridge. Sorry, David.
Ettridge, sorry. They... Oldfield quit as Tony Abbott's staffer, and from then on, it seemed that Tony Abbott was intent on destroying One Nation. So what ended up happening was the way they formed the political party, One Nation, was that they were a company. Basically, they went through for a company structure. So it's like, you've got a director and a secretary, and it's
as opposed to a political party,
correct,
which is a different entity, right?
Correct, and you've got to have 500 members. So it's a different business entity, basically. And so what happened was Tony Abbott, there's a whole lot of stuff happened in between, but basically succeeded in getting, there was a charge. She was found guilty of electoral fraud, basically, because it wasn't a political party. It was an
organisation, like a company.
A company limited by, a proprietary limited. And they had won at that time a bunch of seats in the Queensland election, which is why it was electoral fraud. Anyway, she went to the High Court, I think it was, and got. She was in jail for 11 months. And
not a short amount of time.
No. But then it was overturned on appeal.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure exactly the reasoning for that, but it got quashed. And then, she was obviously out of Parliament for a while, and then she came back in the Senate, a few years later, basically, and it became not just One Nation, it was Pauline Hanson's One Nation, and it was a verified political party. And since that time, she's been attracting, people and influence to the cause, including James Ashby and other things. So, Tony Abbott recently, this is why it's interesting, has recently sort of talked about, trying to mend bridges, I guess, is kind of the concept with One Nation. Again, essentially the motivation being, let's try not to split the voter base, the Conservative voter base, right? So it's interesting history. It's worth knowing. It's worth reading up on. We'll post the article in the show notes. But I don't know. What did you guys think of that? I found that.
Yeah, I mean,
wild.
I was aware of, Pauline Hanson's stint in jail. I don't think I was aware of the detail that, sort of Tony Abbott was, instrumental in sort of pushing that. But yeah, to give it a little bit more detail. So my understanding was that Pauline Hanson appealed to the High Court. I don't think it was so it didn't overturn the conviction. Rather, it refused bail to Hanson and David Ettridge while they prepared their appeal, and then it was quashed. And from what I can see here in this article, for the following legal reasons: so lack of fraudulent intent. The court ruled that the evidence did not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Hanson and Ettridge knew that the individuals on the registration list were not genuine party members. Objective membership. Judges determined that because applicants had paid membership fees, received receipts, and had been issued membership cards under the name Pauline Hanson's One Nation, they objectively became members regardless of the leader's subjective intentions to restrict membership rights and legal errors. The judge was found to have misdirected the jury by failing to explain that the evidence regarding a support movement was irrelevant to the objective formation of membership contracts, and that Ettridge could not be convicted of aiding Hanson without proof of a dishonest purpose. So even though they objectively did the wrong thing in terms of like registering a party in the way they didn't register a party. The it got overturned based around this idea around intent, obviously, which is important from a legal perspective, is you need to prove intent in order to establish, criminality. So that's why it ended up being overturned. But yeah, I certainly wasn't aware of the sort of instrumental role that Abbott had and the sort of long-running feud that's been there between them. It makes sense if you think about it, because Abbott's been a hard right member of the Liberal Party for many, many years. And as you said at the start, Adam, he identified early on the risk that Hanson presented from a
voter bloc.
A voter bloc perspective of splitting the Conservative support within the country. He was right about all of that. It's interesting now that it's going to be his job to... I mean, even when he said he became president of the Liberal Party again recently, he said it was his job to sort of bring people back into the Liberal Party, and sort of it's still sort of framed as a kind of adversarial framing against One Nation, right? We're trying to stop the bleed to One Nation, trying to bring people back into the Liberal Party. But I don't think anyone is under any illusions that the future of the Conservative movement is going to need to integrate One Nation to a certain extent if they want to form government. And Barnaby Joyce, in one of his recent interviews, basically said, like, well, you may not want to be in a coalition with us, but if you want to be in power, we're going to need to be in a coalition with you if you want to retain power. So, like, we're the kind of the pillar of support now, so you need to get on board with us if you want to be in power, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which is pretty bold, I reckon.
Meanwhile, the Nationals are like, hey,
hey guys.
The other reason why this is sort of in the news is that so Jacinda Ardern's been repetitively called a witch, who's the Victorian Premier, over the last
they're kind of bringing back the ditch the witch line.
which is Pauline Hanson said, "Suck it up, sweetheart," was her response, because basically
Lovely.
she'd
That's
been called
great.
the same thing.
That's great.
So all this sort of, we've talked about at the start of the show, the anger and the sort of disintegration of political commentary, which Hanson is part of, and this feeds into a larger movement, which we've talked about as well with the UK and how it's shaping elections,
and Advance Australia and these
Advance
kind of like
Australia.
transnational networks of capital. We actually had he asked me not to mention his name, but a listener of the show actually sent through a research report that he's been working on about the connections of the far right and how it's influencing sort of Australian and international politics, which I'd love to sort of go through a little more deeply when I've got some time and talk about. He's happy for us to talk about some sections of it on the show, as well as do a deep dive on Advance Australia. I think there's a lot of stuff going on there that the Australian, myself included, the Australian public has just not twigged onto in terms of their connections, their reach, their influence. I think there's a lot of stuff there that we could dive into more deeply. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for that exceptionally upsetting fucking upcoming episode of our natural selection.
Funny.
We should have just been a movie podcast. Honestly, we should have just done movies. It would have been so much easier. I'd be so much less depressed.
Yeah. So there's another opinion article here by John Harris from The Guardian, which is sort of talking about the lunge to populism and the far right in the UK, and how events
it all
in the
ties in,
news-
right? It's all of a piece. Like whether it's happening here in
Events.
Australia or in the
Correct.
UK, it's all part of the same movement, right?
And it's we'll get to the bottom of the article, I think, or the end of the article is actually more interesting than the start. But this concept of how it's a long article. I'm not going to go through it line by line, but this concept that a murder, some
Which
other
was
incidents
allegedly occurred at the hands of a Sudanese immigrant, I think it was, and
Yeah.
then that sort of kicked off all of this wave of violent protest in Belfast,
Yeah.
and it sort of is very reminiscent of some of the darkest times in,
the Troubles.
yeah,
The
the Troubles,
Troubles
yeah,
in
exactly,
Ireland.
in Ireland, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So how events like this can get blown out of proportion and put through a lens and scapegoated, basically, which
Especially when being amplified by Elon Musk, the world's richest fucking gaping asshole, essentially going to bat daily on Twitter, framing it in terms of an existential, sort of conflict. We need to fight or be defeated, like this kind of language, essentially incentivizing violence.
Yeah.
As one of the richest man in the world with the biggest megaphone in the world, saying "Go for it, go nuts," for a country that he doesn't even live in has nothing to do with, as far as I can tell. Like it's just really depressing, man.
So what I'm not really across the details on the ground, but ostensibly, yeah, there has been an uptick in sort of violence around, Belfast, Southampton, and
there were some race riots in the UK, in England. I think it was a year ago or 2 years ago, where they tried to like burn down the hotels that the sort of people who were attempting to migrate to the UK were being kept in, and all this like Tommy Robinson far right, kind of like even further right than Farage kind of, violent political movement that seems to be rising there. It's very concerning.
The situation in Belfast, I found particularly interesting. I saw some breakdowns on the actual media coverage of the event, of the attack that like kicked all this off, right? That the alleged Sudanese immigrant like stabbing the eyes of somebody, like it was like someone got stabbed in the eye. I think they didn't die. I don't think they died. I think it was just an attack. But the reporting around it started referring to it like as an attempted beheading, despite the fact no one had.
Is there evidence of that? Yeah.
Like none of the press releases from the police or anything like that had said that. So
people are of course out online
leaping
and
onto
people
some Islamophobia of being like, attempting to behead
Another
someone,
ISIS,
like an honor killing, and then suddenly you've just thrown in Islamophobia with the xenophobia and the just everything kind of building in, like really irresponsible reporting.
So obviously there's been a reaction to this. I guess the main thrust here is that there's
they're burning cars in the street. It was a pretty big reaction.
Yeah.
The thrust, what this article, this opinion piece sort of gets to here is that, and George referenced it before, there is this talk around civil war in the UK, as though somehow this is like a foregone conclusion. And you match that up with some of the rhetoric from Farage around, civil disobedience and all this kind of stuff, and sort of this putting it the idea into people's heads that the country is falling to pieces.
How did multi-millionaire Nigel Farage become the avatar for the everyday working man's political discontent? The guy who got $5 million from a billionaire, as he said, it was for my security. And then later on he said, actually, it was a gift for doing Brexit. Like this guy who literally is a toff at the top end of town who cosplays as your everyday working man with a cigarette and a bev. Like, how did this guy become the avatar for... the nationalists, populist discontent? It just seems bizarre to me.
So I guess what I'm trying to draw out of this, what I've drawn out of this opinion piece here, is that it's the same playbook that Farage and Paul and Hanson are using. It's literally almost one for one in terms of what's happening. The material circumstances of people in the community aren't particularly good. There's a increase in the cost of living. People, it's harder to get by. And
why
while
is
the UK
that? Because
has
parties aren't working, because there's no peace dividend to draw from anymore, because we're increasingly being drawn into building up our militaries and increasingly drawn towards expensive conflict because of the volatility of the world. Whose fault is that? Donald Trump. And Vladimir Putin's. Number three, people see that these milquetoast political parties aren't helping and bringing them any closer to a solution. And so what do? They rage out and they, sort of go to political extremes. And who's willing to capitalize on that discontent and that violence? It's these figures like Hanson and Farage and Trump and others.
Well, the problem is they're the ones that are scoped. Like, I guess they're putting the idea in our heads. It's the other way around, I would argue. There's discontent, and they are using.
They're seeding it and amplifying it.
It's a populist, fascistic, like Hermann Goering literally called it out in the Nuremberg trials. Like this concept of you find someone for the people to hate. You blame that.
Create the other.
Thing,
blame them for everything that's gone wrong. Yeah.
Say there's a crisis. And then
take advantage of that crisis.
Take advantage of that.
Yeah, whether it's the fire. What was it? The fire at whatever.
The Reichstag fire.
The Reichstag fire. Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking of. Thank you. I was reaching for that. And where it may or may not have been a legitimate sort of political attack, but whether it was a false flag or not, seems like it wasn't. But in the case of the Reichstag fire, from what I've read, but it doesn't matter because whether you manufacture a crisis or a crisis naturally occurs because of the environment that you've created, you can then take advantage of that crisis to
use
then
it.
seize power. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing that I'm increasingly worried about is all of these figures, Farage, Trump, Hanson, others, is that they don't understand the fire that they're playing with. Like, they're happy to ride these waves of discontent to electoral success. But I think even they don't appreciate
If you break the
how-
system, how
if you
can you be
break
the
the
boss of a
system,
system at the end
how
of it? Because there's no system.
quickly can things can spin out of control, because I think they think, oh, I can ride this to success and then I'll be in charge and then I can do what I want and everything will be fine. It's like, no, I don't think you realize how quickly these situations historically spin out when this level of discontent and rage is unleashed on the political system, that you may not be, you know, the Stalin that ends up in charge. You're probably the Lenin, right? The guy who's in charge for a minute and then gets fucking exiled or beheaded, or like you might be the guy that like brings forth your new glorious revolution. But there's going to be a cannier, smarter, more devious motherfucker in the wings who's going to knife you and take you out, and then actually
You could be the Trotsky, not the Stalin.
exactly.
Yeah,
That's what I'm trying to say. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and look,
Yeah,
I mean,
Trotsky's
just
a better example because Lenin
Yeah.
actually ruled for a time. But yeah, you understand what I'm saying.
Trotsky and Stalin. Yeah. The thing that I find hilarious about Farage is that 10 years ago Brexit was 10 years ago.
It was
right?
10 years ago.
Yeah, 2016. Yeah.
Fuck, that's gone quick. At that time, he was the chief voice for the leave the EU.
Yeah, and they ran these big bus
They
ads
blamed-
saying 300
they blamed-
whatever million pounds per day into the NHS and all
it
this sort of stuff. Yeah.
It was the same playbook. It was the reason why you're not getting ahead is because
damn immigrants.
we're tied to Europe and
Brussels.
because of dem immigrants, right?
Yeah.
Okay. People went along with that and they left the UK. They left the EU. It's been 10
And it worked
years.
out great.
Nothing. Nothing has
good.
changed. If anything, it's gotten worse.
Yeah, it's responsible
Farage
for a
and
couple
people-
of points of growth every
And
year
rather
since
than
then.
turning
being lost.
around and going, this guy was wrong.
on fucking
This guy was
everything.
wrong on
About
everything.
everything. And was objectively a liar.
And it hasn't actually done anything. People have now he's saying, oh, it's actually just because of the immigrants. The EU had nothing to do with it.
It's the exact same Republican playbook. Starve government, make government not work, make people angry at government for not working, capitalize on their discontent and get more power.
The point being is that this guy's not a truth sayer. He's a
Bullshit artist. He's a con
bullshit
man.
artist.
It's like Trump. He's a confidence man.
You know, he's the what's the character off the Music
P.T.
Man?
Barnum?
P.T. Barnum's another one. Yeah.
The Music Man in the Music
The Music Man from the Music Man. Anyway, I can't
titular
remember the
Music
character's
Man.
I don't know.
Lyle
Yeah,
Landon.
but like the concept of you sell it, you go in and bullshit everyone into a dream that doesn't exist. But I guess what I find crazy is that people are willing to just go along with it for the second time because and it's not so much because they're using logic, and this comes back to your point about the comments at the start of the show, George. No one's using logic here. No one's using any rational.
No one's
thought.
using their
It
brains
is-
at all.
It is just
It's just feelings. It's
Feelings.
just vibes.
Yeah.
and that is really how it's one of the reasons why institutions, how society frays and how we retreat back to our tribal corners, because it's all based on vibes. No, people are, it's the cognitive dissonance of I want to believe something, and it's very hard to be you're building a wonderful finance app to help with your home finances. You could run someone through that, show them all the reasons why the math isn't mathing, and
And the decisions they make.
and
would
they'll
be
still
bad
go
for them.
out and they'll still buy a fucking boat
Yeah.
because based with debt. Because it gives them a feeling, and again, people
And
make
it doesn't
decisions on
immediately
feelings.
affect them. Right?
Correct.
Like
I really do
that's the thing
think-
of I can take on this debt now and I won't be homeless tomorrow to buy the boat. So
Yeah.
I'll buy the boat. When it's like, no, there's actually, if you really think about it, you
I
shouldn't
really
the boat.
do think Rupert Murdoch is one of the figures of the last century who really has the most to answer for with regards to the instupidification of our society. Like just
the
making us
shitification of people.
the enshittification of people's brains. Like a quarter, half a century of this fucking shit. This Fox News, Fair and Balanced, the Australian, the Herald Sun, the Daily Telly, the Sun over in the UK. It's just nearly a half a century of it just rotting our fucking brains to shit, and we're all now starting to pay the price and having to live in the fucking shit, corrupt piece of shit world that Rupert Murdoch personally has helped to bring about, along with the global network, interconnected networks of capital and CPAC and all the rise of these organizations and all sort. But it comes at the start from an inherent, anti-intellectualism. I don't want to know things. I just want to feel things. The truthiness, as Stephen Colbert once said, it doesn't matter if it is true, it feels true to me. And so that's all I need. Gamer Jam in the chat is saying, the real silent majority is the 70% of people who just want everyone to be happy, healthy, and taken care of. Unfortunately, the other 30% are ideological allies with the people who own all the media and social media, which has enabled them to believe that they're the majority. And and maybe it is, as you say, Gamer Jam, just from what I was talking about at the start of the show with regards to seeing and hearing all of these One Nation people, maybe it really is just like, One Nation is aligned with Gina Reinhart and her interests. And, those people are just getting amplified. And maybe they're not the majority, but we're just seeing them more. And it's a manufactured consent issue now where the Australian populace thinks that, well, we're hearing all about Pauline Hanson in the media. It's Channel 7 goes, do you still want to be Prime Minister, Pauline Hanson? She goes, yeah, I do want to be Prime Minister. They go, I'm fucking unbelievable. And no follow-up. Like, the media and social media and the apparatuses of power have all had a role to play here in creating this reality for us and not pushing back and not challenging, right?
The other thing this opinion piece points out is that, social media in particular, the gluing to the algorithm and to the information streams that fit your worldview, amplify and continue to
algorithmized rabbit holes are not good for people's brains, as it turns out. I really think in 50 years they're going to be studies about how the introduction of social media is what broke our world, and that's why we're now hitting our hands in front of a bin fire. It's like the introduction of social media algorithms on our phones broke the fucking world.
What will they study at that point? With? Then if we're all just heating our heads, it'll just be like people talking shit around the bin fire.
Yeah, well, which is basically what it is now, just online.
Hang on, can I just mention, just jumping way back to something I said before, correction, I got my wires crossed. The beheading things that I was talking about was in relation to the murder that Adam mentioned earlier. So no, the guy did die. I said they didn't. I got my wires crossed with a different situation, so...
I will make sure not to use that as the clip, because otherwise we're going to get fucking roasted for getting something wrong, even if we corrected it.
Tom, this isn't just happening in the UK. Tom, are you aware of what's happening in Switzerland?
No, not in peaceful, neutral Switzerland.
It's very peaceful.
Famously neutral Switzerland.
And very peaceful, apparently.
Apparently will only remain peaceful if they do not have more than 10 million people and not a person more. That is the magic number. 10 million and one, and everything goes to shit, apparently.
Not concerned about growth, obviously, by the sounds of it, and continuing to grow their economy. But
so a right-wing party in Switzerland, the Swiss People's Party, although the acronym for it is SVP, which
in the local language,
that makes more sense. Thank you, George. I was just like, wait, that doesn't line up at all. No, but of course, in Swiss. So they're proposing what would be considered a world's first, if it passes, which is a population cap of a country to mandate that their population cannot exceed 10 million people until 2050.
Which is basically just a way of saying chuck the immigrants out, right? Like it's an explicitly racist policy, right?
Yeah, it's like they're framing it around to not be letting I guess probably reducing the amount of immigrants, but also not letting them in the first place, is kind of thing.
Yeah.
Using it as a reason to deny people entry into the country.
So the Yes campaign says uncontrolled immigration is causing Switzerland to grow far too quickly. The negative consequences are palpable in all areas of life.
And they're claiming only 1 in 10 immigrants are workers with sought after skills. This party, I don't know what they're
Based on nothing.
Based on what that's based on or anything like that. But
Who's looking after your old people, right? I guarantee it's fucking, immigrants. These are the only people that are willing to take these shit jobs in childcare and aged care and the health systems and,
yeah, I just think it's interesting. I don't know. I think it further goes into similar to the housing policy that we talked about last week, the housing policy, not policy that we talked about last week from Pauline Hanson's One Nation.
Pauline Hanson's One Nation's Pauline Hanson.
Yeah, you got to think this through for more than just we'll just reduce the amount of immigrants and we'll use that number to keep it at 10 million. Because if you then reduce, what happens when it's only Swiss people in Switzerland and you're approaching that 10 million? What then? If it's legislated that the population cannot go beyond 10 million
we're talking about
people,
a one-child policy, like in China. What happens?
One-child policy? Are you just gonna have to statelessly evict people?
Too much fucking.
You're not allowed. Yeah, is there gonna be mandatory
This is an announcement
abortion?
from the Swiss government. Stop fucking.
Yeah, what? When you bang on a 10 million people population and someone falls pregnant?
Yeah.
What happens? You gotta. You can't. No.
It's not about. This is just a veiled way of saying.
Yeah,
they're not kick the immigrants out. If it's Swiss people having babies, they're not going to do anything, right? They want Swiss people having Swiss babies. They just don't want the Browns, right?
No, but 10 million and one, George, and it all collapses.
Yeah.
I mean, ironically, the thing is that because of demographic collapse, which is happening across most Western countries,
you need more people.
They would probably not get to 10 million Swiss people in any short order.
The problem that we have globally is that exactly what you said, Adam. Yeah. People aren't having enough children in Western economies. The growth is slowing down because if people are having 1.2 kids per couple on average, you can see how the numbers the math isn't mathing there in terms of your country continuing to grow and being able to support all of the large swell of people that are going to be in aged care in the next 20 to 30 years, if the tax-paying population that sits beneath them is not several times the size that they are, right? That's how it's always worked, is that for every one person in retirement, you've got 3 or 4 working people to support them, through taxes and other sort of wealth transfer means and aged care and all these sort of things. If that ratio starts becoming 2 to 1 or 1 to 1, where the working age population is supporting one person, well, the maths doesn't work, from a purely budgetary perspective, let alone an economic growth perspective, right?
Yeah. So that's what all the opponents have said to this policy. The people who are against it have just been saying that this totally fucks Switzerland's ability to be competitive in the world economy. There'll be a shortage of workers, workers with critical skills, and then it fucks their relationship with the EU. And
what do you get? You get inflation, because then you have to pay more for the same level of productivity to incentivize workers into those roles that nobody wants to take. And so what is that? That's inflation. That's what you're describing. This would be a hyperinflation spiral because your country's growth is not outpacing its needs. I get that people have concerns about the character of their nation changing with immigration. I get that. And it's not even necessarily explicitly racist. I live in a far-flung suburb that's leafy and far away from the city, and I like the character of my neighborhood. If all of a sudden there were, medium density housing and apartments and things being built right next door to me, that would bother me, because it's that's not why I moved into one of the further suburbs away from the city, was to have that experience. I opted in for a different experience here. I get why that would bother people. But I'm also aware that the nature of any country is change. So things change. This used to be orange fields is not a way that you can live your life. like things grow, things change, cities expand, countries expand. You want population growth because that means you live in a dynamic, expanding economy. And I think a lot of these Swiss citizens have been the beneficiaries of a growing and expanding economy alongside their growing and expanding population. And so they want all the benefits, but they don't want any of the costs. And I'm sorry to say that that is simply not how things work.
Yeah.
You would not like to live in the country that did not experience any population growth for the last 26 years because your quality of life personally would be much, much, much worse.
Yeah. The other thing to call out, and again, just from an empathetic point of view, is to understand that some of these European cultures, have had a fairly, even if it's just for the tourists, there's been a through line of a fairly consistent cultural narrative and way of doing things and way of living for a long period of time.
Europe has a much more durable
we're talking
sort of cultural
200, 300
history.
years. Yeah,
Right.
like Swiss has been around since what, Switzerland as a country has been around since like the 1850s, I want to say.
But culturally, these
yeah.
groups, these cultures have existed in this area for thousands of years, right? in
And so
different
I understand
configurations.
that, to have that start to be perhaps fraying around the edges, you feel like you're losing your identity. And, this is part of why in the UK...
Germany for the Germans.
Well, this is why in the UK, there are people that are, sort of, again, still think that they're a superpower. They're not.
And they haven't been for their entire lives, right? Like,
People in
it's
the
been
UK
some
saying,
time.
India's still ours, right?
Yeah.
No.
So, it is sad, and maybe but again, it's about having a deeper conversation of like, how do you protect the core values and the core, the elements of that culture while also creating the third thing, creating it was interesting. There was a food, and this is a real sidebar, but like
I'll
as an
allow
example,
it. But watch yourself, McCoy.
I found myself watching some late or early evening SBS food documentary stuff. I think
Before it gets too pornographic, surely.
Anyway, but it was about a British guy going up the east coast of Australia, and he went to a town. I think it's where the Big Banana is, Big Prawn. It's where the Big Prawn is.
Where the Big
anyway,
Prawn is, yeah.
Or somewhere in that area. The point being is,
For those of you who aren't Australians, our claims to fame are
Big
large
things.
statues of strange things out in remote, outposts in the bush. It's kind of a thing here. We've got the big banana, big pineapple, big prawn. It's just kind of
Big Merino. I love
It's what
the
it
Big
is.
Merino.
I don't get it. It's all we've got.
I've forgotten the town. It's somewhere in Queensland. But this
Well,
concept,
the one with the
that-
giant prawn, I think.
Well, it's not, I don't know if it was that. It might have been further south. Anyway, he was driving north. The point being, it was a big pineapple farming area. But a lot of the people that came in to do the farming are Sikhs. They're from
immigrants.
Various parts of the subcontinent. They have this festival, which is like, it's this weird blend of like, we're having a barbie, we're having a cookout, but it's got like Sikh infused, like, and this is the point he was using. It's like using food like as the through line here,
As the cultural through line.
as the
Isn't that
blending,
beautiful?
blending of culture.
Isn't it beautiful that we've got this blend of
and-
cultures happening here in Australia and we get access to this culture and these
Yeah.
food and these stories? I don't know.
But
I think it's wonderful that I can go down and
It's
get
amazing.
Thai food from my local shop, and it's like fantastic because the person's from Thailand and they know all about Thai food, and now I get to eat delicious Thai food. Like, isn't that fantastic?
But the point being, there's a third thing that's been created here. It's not
Yeah.
European. It's not necessarily exclusively Sikh. It is somewhere in the middle.
That's beautiful.
And the point is that this will continue to happen as humanity exists. So this concept that we can lock in culture as a
culture
sort of
starts
time bubble
now.
as this thing that never changes is
Yeah, it's absurd.
something that we can't wrap our heads around as humans.
Yeah.
We haven't quite got there.
I was having a similar conversation with my wife the other day, I think, because we were talking about banh mi's. It's like banh mi sandwich being like, oh, these are great. It's really unfortunate that it's like history is rooted in colonialism.
Well, that's why it's
being
on French
really
bread, right?
bad,
Because the French
but
invaded, and that's
you just-
but you get all
just
these mixture of
jammed
elements.
These two cultures
yeah.
together. Like, yeah, it was through force, but yeah, they had all this French bread and all these Vietnamese ingredients.
I think
and
that's
they
why I
made this
loved-
delicious sandwich.
I think that's why I loved Anthony Bourdain's show so much, is because it, which I've been watching it again recently, because I didn't have something to watch and I just default back to Anthony Bourdain when I'm bored. But it's so good because it shows the fusion of these different cultures and the history and how politics and world events fuses into food and how it creates culture and shapes culture. And like you say, Tom, with the banh mi, obviously, the French occupation of Vietnam as being a colonial outpost and that sort of stuff.
China.
Like that influenced the cuisine and the food, and so that's why you've got a baguette as part of your banh mi, right?
So like the context that these two cultures came together was awful, but it shows how multiculturalism can create some beautiful things,
new,
like,
interesting,
right?
beautiful things. I've always been, and maybe it's because I'm a third generation immigrant. My mother's side was Italian, my father's side was Greek, and I've seen the proliferation of Italian and Greek food and the appreciation for quality ingredients and olive oil and pasta. I've seen the proliferation of the outputs of my culture and how it's become popularized here. The food that I got made fun of for bringing to school 20 years ago is now haute cuisine.
Mate, that prosciutto is worth more than your kids' school fees.
Yeah, it quite literally is. Maybe it's because I see the proliferation of coffee culture here in Melbourne, because we've got all of these Italian and Greek immigrants that have come here and brought their things along with them. I think that's beautiful, but it disturbs me that people see that and they're disgusted. Like, it's sad, man. I don't know.
The attitude I've seen with like people feeling like certain areas that they feel now they live in another country rather their own. Like, oh, it feels like I'm in China or something just because you're in the Chinatown area of a suburb. I love Chinese food.
Yeah.
Like, it's great that it's here.
Lean in, seize the opportunity.
Being proud of your country to me always seemed insane. It's like, I think there was a quote, something like nationalism is like one flower being proud of the pot of dirt that it grew up in, as opposed to another pot of dirt. Like it is, I'm not saying culture's meaningless, but like, nationalism is
Be
silly.
bold if you were.
It's just the idea of territories and lines and this culture and that culture. It's kind of like, it's very reductive.
It's just a form of tribalism, but the thing is, I think,
that's what the right loves. They love the in-group and the out-group and like us and, this whole idea of like,
we have a predisposition, though,
fairness
to
and
that,
like
I
disgust
think,
of the outsider. And but it's more prevalent on the right. Like these things are, if you look at the psychological traits of people who are left, they're more open to new experiences. They have less fear of the other and of boundaries and things like that. Whereas people are far right and conservative, if you measure them on the same.
Well, they're conservative. They don't like change, do they?
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
and so
like
there's a certain measure of disgust around things that are new and different ideas about fairness and inclusiveness and in-group and out-group, and they're wanting to exclude people more. And I think really part of it, just more than anything, is just like your personality type. Are you open to new things or not? Your level of openness psychologically will be the determinant, more or less, as to whether you are left or right. But the thing that's concerning is that level of lack of openness becoming the dominant sort of ideology and restricting things and closing things down, because as we know, that's not conducive to growth and change, right? I know people are scared of change. Things are changing quickly. There's AI, there's all this stuff, but like,
just go.
I don't know. You gotta go along to get along to some degree. You have to embrace change. Not all change is good change. Right, as we'll talk about in a sec.
I was going to say, just saying AI is the AI is going on at the moment, and everything's changing quickly.
I'm saying I think that's why people are threatened or feel threatened, is that they see their world changing so rapidly across so many vectors: culture, technology, the economy, and they retreat to these tribal kind of viewpoints. I think that's why people feel threatened. But as we've seen historically, those changes, by and large, are good for the economy. The people who thought that the looms, the Luddites who thought that automatic looms were going to ruin their lives, they might have been right about their lives, but you can't deny that manufacturing and advanced manufacturing and chips and like, you can't deny that that's long term has changed things, in a way that's positive for growth overall. So I get people feeling protective about their patch, but you also need to consider the broader scope of history as well alongside that. Growth and change is good.
unless you're Jared Kushner, in which case, fuck off.
Jared Kushner can get fucked. That's true. That's an
God,
evergreen statement.
Haven't heard that name for a while.
He's been around. He's not an official member of the White House, but he's still doing Trump's bidding in all these peace talks and all this sort of shit.
Also, still running a business. Thousands of Albanians have been protesting around the country and in the capital, Tirana. It's the largest protest movement that's been seen in a while in Albania. Particularly, and what it's against is the luxury resort development backed by Jared Kushner. So there is an area of the coast. Actually, I'll go back even further. So Jared Kushner is Donald Trump's son-in-law. He's married to Ivanka Trump.
Yeah, and he's running a $2 billion Saudi-backed venture fund, which is absolutely not naked corruption.
At all. Anyway, Ivanka and Jared were just cruising the Mediterranean, and they just sort of went past the Albanian coast, and they just loved it. They just thought it was
enchanted by it.
Yes. And so they decided, we're going to put a big resort here.
We're going to buy this island, and we're going to pop a big old 10,000 room resort right here.
Unfortunately, that area is also some pretty sensitive wetlands. There's like flamingos.
It's also like an important geo-strategic area, right? It's just to the east of Italy, and like would presumably give the United States like an uncharacteristic amount of influence in terms of what passes through where in that area, right?
It's a resort. It's not a port. But
yeah, but you can't blame me for being skeptical of son-in-law to the globalist expansionist colonialist president Donald Trump deciding to stake a claim on what used to be, has been historically for thousands of years, a military outpost that specifically because of the influence it has over the waterways around that region, right?
The thing that they're the one to put it is directly on these wetlands that are migratory birds that live there. There's ecological concerns, and people are fairly upset about the environmental aspects of this. Now, and they're calling these protests the Flamingo Revolution, which I love. I think that's amazing.
That's great.
Cute.
Having a mascot helps.
Having a mascot helps. People are holding up pink flamingos as the sign. So there's the Albanian leader who is his last name is Rama. He has said, we're going to make sure we do a proper environmental impact assessment.
She'll be right, mate. Yeah, don't worry about it. Just go, we'll look after all the birds and shit. Don't fucking worry about it, mate. It's all fucking fine. Don't worry about it.
He's been in power since 2013, and
which is a great sign.
He's been, he promised to come in and help with corruption, and while he did, create an anti-corruption commission kind of thing. But people aren't particularly happy with the way things are going, and is it
anti-corruption sort of like in the way that Xi Jinping does anti-corruption, where he only sort of targets the corruption of his political enemies, or is it like an earnest attempt to?
It's kind of like what we've got here in Australia with a commission that doesn't actually do anything.
Yeah, Viktor Orban anti-corruption kind of situation, right?
Well, I don't know that. I just think
I don't know. I'm asking the question.
I think it's a fairly ineffectual piece of bureaucracy, as from what I understand. But
the best kind of bureaucracy.
It sort of kicked off last month. There was a temporary fencing was put around the site, and people lost their minds, and they've later removed the fencing, so apparently it's going ahead regardless of any of this.
I find that's what's amazing. They put up they approved it. They've put up the fence, and everyone's like, "Oi, whoa, hang on, this is the area you're going to do it," and they complain, so they're fine. We'll take away the fence. We're still going to do it, though.
We're still going to do the thing. Yeah, 100%. It's a lot of money.
So it already cost the deputy leader, Belinda Baluku, her tenure. She was let go over alleged corruption. But now they're coming for Rama himself, I guess, in terms of where the protests are heading. I mean,
it doesn't look great when your deputy. It's like your deputy's corrupt. It's like, all right, well, I fired her. I'm cool though, and everyone's like, no, we still don't trust you.
Yeah, don't worry
your
about me. I'm chill.
Corrupt.
I'm fine. I'm fine. It's just all the people around me.
The other layer to this is that Albania is trying to enter the European Union. So the European Union's like, well,
bet-
if you want to be
bet-
let in,
I bet,
there's certain controls you've got to
I
have in
bet,
place.
yeah, lots of countries in the European Union that don't want free movement of people coming from brown countries would be thrilled about that.
I mean, yeah, Albania is fairly. I actually don't know the ethnic mix of Albania that much, to be honest. I know it's sort of near the Balkans, but yeah, yeah, it's interesting that there's this massive protest movement against. Again, it's the Trump is sort of front and center with it. It's I feel like more than anything, it's an anti-Trump sort of.
That's got to be part of it.
It's
right?
definitely a factor in it. I mean, like there was that development that was going to happen on the Gold Coast here, wasn't there? That then didn't end up going ahead. But was
I didn't
gonna
hear
be,
about
like,
this. What was
Yeah,
this?
yeah. I think it was a couple months ago, but there was like a Trump Tower
It's going to be the tallest
proposal.
tower. On
Like, this massive tower in the Gold Coast. I think it was the Gold Coast. It was in
the...
Queensland.
No, it was the Gold
somewhere.
Coast.
Gold
Yeah,
Coast?
it was
Was
going
it
to
Gold
be.
Coast?
It was going to be the tallest
yeah.
building in the southern hemisphere.
Why does it have to
sure.
be? Why does
It was
everything
going
have
to
to
be
be
a
the
big
tallest?
fucking,
I don't
big
understand.
fucking building, and it was, a Trump real estate thing, like the Trump businesses or whatever was going to be it. So yeah, I don't know if it was going to be a hotel or a casino or whatever, but like
You would
a
think
big
if there's
Trump development, and
one
everyone
area
was like,
politically
yeah.
that would be on board with a Trump development, it would be in Queensland. But
Well, but no, everyone was like, because of just how toxic. Like being like, no, we don't want a Trump tower in Australia. Like it's
Yeah.
the fuck off. We don't.
if he was
want your
smart,
shit.
he'd just call it something else, right? But
Yeah.
he's such an egotist. He has to put his fucking name on
Yeah.
everything, right?
And-
Which actually hurts him in executing his own corrupt ends, right?
But
if
yeah,
he just just put in a shell company and called it, maximal
Drumpf
profit
Tower.
investments. Drumpf Tower or something. Yeah, not Trump Tower.
Yeah, but yeah, so like there wasn't obviously like I think protests to the scale that like we're seeing here in Albania, but like yeah, obviously at least our keyboard warrior backlash was swift and angry, and yeah, it's not going ahead to my knowledge. The Trump Tower development in there. So,
I think
yeah,
it was
but,
more
like,
the
purely-
economics of it didn't work, to be honest.
Oh well, yeah, that too.
Yeah,
but
well.
like, would if a complete other developer was like, I just want to build another skyscraper?
It wouldn't have
in
been a
Gold
pushback.
Coast,
Yeah, so it'd be like, great, another fucking
people-
skyscraper.
Would
Like, there's
I
so
have
many
been
of them.
fucking aware of it being
No.
here in Sydney? Heck no. Like,
I don't know how
so-
they keep building towers like that on the Gold Coast, because like one, there's the coastal erosion, and like you're all going to be underwater anyway at some point in the next 100 years. But then the second part is like I don't know. I often wonder what the foundations are like on the Gold Coast, like the soil, like to support.
Well, they're built
these
right
massive
up close to the
buildings.
beach. It's a good
Yeah.
question. I don't know.
I'm assuming. I mean, they've built enough of them. I'm assuming the engineering's been worked out. But like, I just,
so.
I guess we'll find out in a couple of
Yeah.
decades, won't we?
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, Albania kicking off. I don't think after I posted the story there was another set of protests. So I don't know where this is at as of today, but this was the story a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, also they say sea turtles nest in the area that they want to build
Yeah.
in, and if
You wanna
anyone
fuck
has
sea
seen
turtles?
sea turtles, they're amazing. So
I
no,
know.
fuck them. Don't build there. Sea turtles nesting is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen.
Build a resort somewhere else.
There's no shortage of places you can build a fucking
Yeah.
resort.
Go to Saudi Arabia where they want to build they just cancelled the line, didn't they?
Have they cancelled the line?
neon. The line has been cancelled. We didn't talk about this. Did we talk about this? The
So
line
I-
got cancelled.
I know that it's been troubled in recent years because
No,
everyone's like,
it's been
a
outright
large
cancelled.
mirror city that runs along a line in the middle of the desert is maybe not the easiest engineering problem to solve, but I didn't
Damn,
realize it had been cancelled.
Our
It's been-
cyberpunk future has been cancelled.
Yeah.
Like that's such a
Um,
cyberpunk Blade Runner kind of concept
Yes.
of the long straight city.
Oh, it definitely feels like a young adult novel
Yeah.
setting for sure.
Oh yeah, they
Um,
send their teenagers off to like the
Run the
reaping
maze
or
or
whatever. like
yes,
some-
exactly.
Yeah.
No,
It
I volunteer as tribute to run the line.
turns out the instability in the Middle East and with oil prices actually means that the Saudi economy. Well, there's larger questions around the Saudi economy and
Yeah, the Gulf is pulling back on a lot of external investments, from what I understand, and obviously, big boondoggles like the line would be right in the firing line for that sort of pullback.
they want to get themselves off oil money and diversify their economy, and the way they want to do that is through tourist
makes
dollars.
sense.
And
Does kind of
unfortunately-
undermine that when Iran's bombing,
Yeah, correct.
the region. So
But yeah,
all
line's
of
been
a
cancelled.
sudden the come to Dubai Habibi kind of line doesn't really sort of stack up.
But,
Yeah,
you
it's
know-
like they've got Chanel elsewhere. Like I don't need to go to a place
Maybe-
that's getting that's getting bombed to get Chanel.
Maybe maybe that's an opportunity for Jared Kushner. Maybe they can
Everything's an opportunity for these cunts. They can't help themselves.
Speaking of cunts, Anthropic has, after releasing Fable, has now said, well, they've been
yeah.
told to
Yeah.
not do Fable.
Well, yeah.
So-
Anthropic releases the model they say is too dangerous to release, and then the US government says, "Hey, this was too dangerous to release," and they go, "Ah, shit."
Remember 1 week ago when Adam's like, I reckon they would definitely IPO before releasing their Mythos class models, I would think. And then like
I think
next
like 2
minute.
I said
days
Mythos
later.
specifically. I didn't say
Right,
Mythos
but Fable
class.
5 is just Mythos and a mustache. Like they've more or
Yeah.
less admitted that Fable is part of their Mythos class of
Yeah,
models
yeah.
with additional guardrails for cybersecurity purposes, right? So
Yeah.
Fable is meant to consume tokens at 2x the speed of Opus 4.8, which is the latest model, which already consumes tokens at a voracious level. I had a bit of a play around with it this week. It was so token hungry that it chewed up 90 something % of my max plan usage within a session, like with one prompt, essentially.
One
I think
question,
it was
yeah.
reviewing my
If you're
entire
on the
code
max
base.
plan, like how do you what's their strategy for like?
Well, the
topping
plan
up?
is it goes into
Adam,
extra usage.
That's the problem.
So these like Fable 5, as far as I understand it, is like incredibly token hungry, and you can use it as part of your subscription until June 22nd was their line, and so after that it goes into extra usage. So you pay on a cost per token basis. So you have your $200 a month max subscription. If you want to use Fable after June 22nd, the line was, well, then you're going to have to pay for all of that out of extra usage. And it's $50. I don't know if that's AUD or USD. I'd have to check. $50 per million tokens, which is enormously expensive compared
that's a
to
lot.
Opus or Sonnet, which are orders of magnitude lower in terms of their token consumption.
Or you could
right?
just use if you want to work out like where the best restaurant is. You could just use any other tool.
Yeah, well, you don't need you don't need
Or,
Fable to tell you that. But like, but to
If
my
you want
like,
to build
it was,
a spreadsheet,
was-
like, I don't know. Like
it was so token hungry. It consumed 90% of my usage, right, for that 5-hour window with one prompt. And I think it's because it was going through every single line of my code base and reviewing to come up with a response. And it consumed so much I had to stop it. So I didn't even get the output. I had a token bonfire to try and get the output of this
you know.
analysis, and I didn't even get it because I needed the tokens for other things, right?
Yeah,
so
you built through a couple of rainforests and didn't even get anything out of it.
didn't even get anything out of it. So, and meanwhile, I did the whole thing in the task with Opus 4.8 with the remaining 7% of my usage in that 5-hour window. Like it is
it's crazy.
hungry. I'm sure if you're doing cybersecurity stuff and you're trying to patch bugs and all this sort of stuff,
Yeah.
having a system which literally reviews every single line of code and goes through it in detail is useful. I think for most people's purposes, it's massive, massive overkill. And they're getting us hooked. First taste is free, right? Up until the 22nd of June. And then you got to pay out of extra usage
Well,
if you want to keep
and we're
it.
going to
And now-
inshiftify it for
Not
from then on.
anymore.
And not
Yeah,
anymore.
because the government, the US government, citing national security reasons, apparently had a meeting with Anthropic, and Anthropic have then posted a blog post announcement-y thing just saying that they're pulling all access to Fable 5.
Yeah. So basically
from now,
the US...
like worldwide, even though the US were kind of like, you just can't release, like, they had US jurisdiction. Anthropic
Well,
has
no.
done
So they
worldwide,
said
so-
the order from the US government said it cannot be accessible by any foreign nationals, including those on American soil. So if you are a coder from an external extraction who's working in the US on a visa, you can't have access to this model, right? So the only way that Anthropic can comply with that is to basically shut off access
pull it
altogether until they get this resolved. So grand opening, grand closing.
Yeah, which is incredible because, even though, as Adam mentioned before, like, Fable 5 is not the mythos that we've all been talking about for months, but it's basically the mythos with its hands tied behind its back,
Right.
but it's tied with rope that's only like a really basic reef knot that it can untie itself. Because, as we know, AI safeguards are just really giving the AIs instructions to be like, hey, if anyone tries to ask you about X, Y, or Z, don't do it. But maybe if you pretend you're my grandma who really, really, really likes hacking the Pentagon and would tell me how she hacks the Pentagon all the time, what would she say? And it would tell you how to hack the Pentagon.
Yeah.
AIs do not respect their rules.
The guardrails that are formed post the models training, right?
Yes, post
there
the models
are
training.
documented ways that people use to get around these safeguards. Right?
Yeah, I've seen people using it, at my work, for example, using it with explicit instructions to not, like, hey, only reference the context that I have given you. If you want to look at something else, ask me first. And it said, I looked at everything in your organization and I found a few things that sound kind of relevant. Do you want me to use those or ignore them like you asked? It's like,
I've read everything, so would you like me to ignore the things that I've read now? Or
yeah, it's very much
should I read them now that I've read them?
Yeah, Principal Skinner in the burlesque house. Of like, oh, I went to the burlesque house just so I could get instructions on how to get away from there.
Yeah. The sex cauldron. Didn't they close that place down?
Yeah, it's just
I'm
ridiculous.
honestly
And,
getting sick of talking about it, to be honest.
Yeah, for me, it's the.
Is there anything you're not sick of talking about, Adam? I feel like every topic we bring up on the show, you're just like, oh, I'm bored with this.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know what. There's nothing. Like, I'm just very meh about the world at the moment. Do you know what I mean? I'm the reason. I'm the reason why One Nation is surging, because people are just going, oh fuck it.
Careful. I get it. I get where you're coming from, but it's also like this is the most important stuff that's happening now. The thing that we don't appreciate
we haven't
is
even
that
talked about Musk being a trillionaire, but you know.
Yeah, people, the way people react to policy, the way governments respond, all of this stuff is really important because it influences how much money you have in your back pocket. It influences your ability to buy clothes for your kids, to feed your kids, to house your family, to afford to be able to do things. Like all of these policy questions are dry and boring, but it affects our lives.
The best value to shareholders. That's the real question at the end.
Yes.
What's your ROI? Your return on intelligence?
And
that was the big thing. That was the big slogan at the big AI festival I attended a few months ago. Return on intelligence.
I hate that.
But I think the thing with Anthropic that I just sort of want to get out here, what drives me nuts with it is just how absolutely inconsistent Anthropic themselves seem to be with just everything they say, right? Because they work on all the models.
They're moving fast.
They've talked about like we talked about self-recursive like generation of AI models, like can they build themselves? And like, whoa. This happened after you also wrote a thing where you said we all need to kind of pump the brakes on AI development because, hey, we don't want to rush things because we could break the world that same week. And there's like, oh, but also our AI is building itself. And you're like, oh, that's crazy.
Is that a problem?
And then they're like, yeah, Project Glasswing is super important because we're giving Mythos to like, the key tentpole organizations to try and break everything.
Glasswing's on pause now as a result, right?
And then here's Mythos for any Joe Blow willing to be paying a Claude subscription. You're like, what are you doing? What do you mean? Like, it leads me more to think this is the more marketing thing than them actually being the adults in the room.
Maybe.
I would love to be a fly on the wall in either their executive or senior leadership meetings to see what's being discussed, and also how the marketing department, because obviously when companies move this quickly, generally it works great. Is large companies like the executive leadership may want to do things quickly, and they can put comms pieces out, but there's normally a lag in how quick things can be operationalized and actually, how things actually work.
Not when you're doing everything with AI. It's much faster to move fast and break things, right?
Yeah. I don't know. It makes me feel more like it's them marketing it, being like, so it's good. It looks good for us to say, hey, pump the brakes because we're being smart about this. Like, yes, we know we're developing things that could potentially be dangerous, so let's definitely make sure it's not dangerous before we release it.
Meanwhile, his Fable 5 go nuts. At the same time,
here's the most advanced model that's ever been produced ever. That we've also been hyping up as being too dangerous, which can work as marketing in the first place to be like, yes, it's dangerous, but we're the guys who built it. Aren't we amazing? Please fund us. Continue.
Also, we can't get in trouble because we already said that, like, we already called it out. Like,
we've already called it out, and just,
we're the good guys.
Yeah, so Anthropic have been coasting on we're the good guys of AI while you're hearing about OpenAI doing all the ice stuff, Palantir, or like all that and all those sorts of problems. But no, I think that reputation is not earned.
And who knows to what extent this is just literally just Sam Altman getting on the phone with Trump and being like, well, now that OpenAI is your buddy on stuff, can you pump the brakes on our biggest competitor who's now outpacing us? Like, who knows if that's part of it? I wouldn't put it past him, right?
Yeah. So.
It's and I wonder to the extent that we're going to need the most advanced frontier AI models for every single use case. I mean, both OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google's DeepMind, behind Gemini, are all kind of investing boatloads of money into this idea that we need to be the first to build artificial general intelligence, and we need to be the ones that build the most advanced, most capable frontier models at any given stage. But it's like, I don't know, man. There's open source models that are 6 months behind you guys. DeepSeek, Qwen, Kimi Code, that are not that far behind. And as you say, Tom, people don't need Opus 4.9 to tell them what the weather's going to be tomorrow, right? Like, I think there is maybe a point of saturation.
They don't need Opus 1.0 to tell them what the weather's going to be like tomorrow. Just hop on weather.com. Like, that's what I was saying the other week when they're saying they're running out of compute. I'm like, we don't need to be using it for everything.
Compute for everything. Yeah. So I think there's like, especially when you can run local models that are now getting smaller and smaller and more efficient at tool calls and this kind of step agentic workflows locally on like a computer with a decent graphics card and quite a bit of RAM. I wonder to the extent the value proposition of these massive AI companies is going to be realized if people can just run open source models and do 80-90% of what the frontier models do for free. I just don't see where the moat is anymore. Like when there are all these techniques like distilling, and basically that's what DeepSeek allegedly did with OpenAI, is they got OpenAI to help distill the outputs of their training into a format that DeepSeek can then use to train a smaller, more advanced model for a fraction of the cost, right? So when these techniques are out there and we have all these models that are out in play now that people can do their own recursive self-improvement with Qwen locally on a machine, it's like, well, does having Opus 4.9 really add all of that much at this point when Opus 4.8 is out there and other local models are out there for free that are pretty good? I don't know. I wonder what it's going to look like going forward.
Don't know.
On that note of absolute existential despair, we have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that have, do, or ever will exist at our handle at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and mother flippin' TikTok. Pauline Hanson voters not welcome. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at TikTok at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Threads at tom.heath.
And you don't follow me anywhere.
Thanks for listening, guys. Love your faces. We'll see you next week.
I get enough spam calls.